weekend, but thank you so much for braving the weather to join us today. It's really an exciting time. I'm James Hanowitz. I'm the president of China Institute. And a big welcome to everybody here. I was just explaining to Professor Tsai that we're already begun, but we're not having it now, which is why we're doing it on the weekend. The asbestos abatement and construction to begin to open up 6,000 new square feet behind, which will have acoustically appropriate classrooms and a small auditorium and a real proper place for us to have these kinds of talks and lectures and classes and training and a much more appropriate home for our new partnership with Bard College. It's so exciting to bring music to China Institute with Bard. I can't think of a better partner to do this with. Nobody knows about Chinese music better than our partners. And it's such an honor and such a delight. I was going to say a lot more, but I think that the director of the music program, Tsai Jingdong, goes without too much introduction. His history is illustrious, his accomplishments many, and we're just so delighted that he's here today along with Catherine and along with other people from Bard to help introduce some of the pleasures and wonders of Chinese music to us, especially in this environment we were just talking where the environment is so stressed and so tense. I think there's not a better way to connect than through music. So over to you guys. Our Director of Education, Yasha John, is here, along with the Director of the Music Program, Sadie.
Thanks for coming, especially on the weekend afternoon. We are really here for a treat. But first, let's go straight to our first performance. 时雨, please. The piece is 阳春古曲, the ancient song of spring.
And then there'll be talk after. First listen, then talk.
that is an ancient piece, and it's supposedly every time we talk about that piece, right, it reflects to court music as a high status, serious, the most serious music. Always refer to folk music. It's a like opposite of the two sides of Chinese music. It's a very one of the most representative pieces throughout the Pipa. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Tsai. And do we need the mic? I know everybody can hear us, but for the purpose of recording.
Is it easier?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. And also I can feel not only in the passion from the performance by Shi Yu, but also from your introduction of the piece. There is so much more in the music and behind the music. That's precisely the purpose of our chat on Chinese music. It's a combination of a chat about the history, the culture, the background information and knowledge to have a deeper understanding of the music and also to appreciate the music itself. And I'm so honored, and we are so honored to have Professor Tsai and his talented students from Bard College here today. Like we mentioned at the beginning, it really is a treat, especially for the holiday season. And for that purpose, we're going to have a shorter chat and more performance time to really celebrate the music. The musicians that we have here today, together with you in this intimate environment. And we are looking forward to have you back when our proper space is built out and a proper stage for our musicians.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
So I want to start with Professor Tsai. You are an orchestra conductor trained in Western music, and a 3-time recipient of the American Society of Composers. And here we are chatting about Chinese music. So to you, what makes music Chinese?
I've been in this country more than 30 years, and I was grown up as a violin player, and went to the music school to study, Western music all the way, harmony theory and conducting and Beethoven and Brahms and all those composers. So then came and one of the most I remembered decisive moment and the capital's moment for me to come to the United States was when I was in China as a college student and study music and watch brought Berlin Philharmonic to come to Beijing to perform. And when I look at his conduct, he closed his eyes, he moved very slowly and smooth, and the whole orchestra, Berlin Philharmonic, and the sound came just amazed me. And I remember there was like 5,000 people in the audience, you can feel the pin drop. That was 1979. And, we have no cell phone yet, so we don't hear anything, but you can see that what Chinese people devote to it. And I was just amazed. Another similar example is when C.Z. Ozawa bring the Boston Symphony to China. I went there too, and Ozawa's conducting, it's like every single part of the body is moving. He can give cues to any part of the body, to any personal musicians, and also amazing the sounds come out. And that's what I decided I want to see. If I want to study conduct, I already started studying conducting, and I want to go to the West. I want to learn this. So I came to the New England Conservatory in Cincinnati. I come to study conducting. After I conduct and work in this country, and I conduct many American orchestras. And very interesting when I go to, for example, Little Rock, Arkansas, I conduct the Arkansas Symphony Orchestra, or go to Kingston, South Carolina, or somewhere, especially those secondary or city symphony orchestra conduct a concert. And I always, conductor always interact with the audience to say, to introduce the piece and to answer their questions. So whenever I introduce kids, when I ask them to give me the question, the first question always comes out, you're Chinese, why you become a Western music conductor? What about Chinese music? And made me, I didn't really care when I grew up about Chinese as much. And because sometimes you were in it, you take advantage, you just don't really care that much, right? And also, during the old time, when you learn Western music, you feel like, folk music or Chinese music is like in the lower status. And that's what, but when people, in America ask me that question, I sort of ask myself, and how much I know about Chinese music, why in China, I become a Western musician. So that's all very interesting question. So I start to look at more, and especially when I go back to China, I always interact with the students, and I feel like suddenly, gradually, I feel like in any culture, if there's art form, music is one of them, can exist for hundreds of thousands of years, it must have either an artistic value or social value. So I think that Chinese music is one of those treasures, and it has been with us thousands of years, and so I need to learn more. So that's how I become more involved with Chinese traditional music and contemporary music, and I can see how, and especially when I was at work at Stanford for 15 years, and my focus point is pretty much like a Chinese music, especially Western influence on Chinese music, especially classical music, how it went to China, but if you look at it, anything I would say, go to China, you have to change. There's a word of Shanghai, right? There's a word for Shanghai, but I would say the bigger word, Chinese. It's like if you don't change, you don't succeed in China. So that's what I think. That's one of the Chinese culture. You can see the 1,000 years continuation because it's constantly. The Chinese culture itself constantly changing, but it's absorbing many from other cultures. And so that's what I think today's music world also in China is like that. There's a basic Han people's Chinese music, but also there's 56 different minority groups. And the Chinese music actually is drawn from this big pot and the music sources and put together or mix them and become become an even stronger character. And for the modern time, and those combined with Western music. And so when I go to the conservatory, you see the pianist, violinist, the cellist, it's a virtuoso and world class. But at the same time, you see Pipa player, erhu player, diesel player. It's the same, have the same talent, the same sophistication, and same high technical ability. So that's why what I see, it's a time to introduce Chinese music and to a broader world, and to make it more people to understand what Chinese music is going on and what Chinese music is about. And it's pretty much how Western music went to China. The first, I think the first, Western music bring Westerner bring Western music to China, I say it's 1601 when Martel Ricci, and we call Lima Dou, he went to China and sent by the Pope to try to conquer China to be Christianity, right? So he went to Beijing, and the first gift he gave to the Emperor Wang Li is a clavichord. It's like a keyboard instrument. And I would say that's probably planted seeds for the Western classical music in China. And the missionary came to China to bring their Western music to there. And then after Opium War, the more foreigners came to China, especially in the port cities like Guangzhou, especially in Shanghai. They brought more Western music to China. And then in 1927, Shanghai created the first conservatory music. And because Shanghai created Shanghai, the conservatory, over China, people want to learn Western music, went to Shanghai to study with those foreign peoples. Many of them are from European, from Russia, and many of them are Jewish, and people. So what I see today, the Bard College, we're doing the other way around, right? When we hope to bring people in the West who want to learn Chinese music come to Bard. That's why we created this program in Bard to have a Chinese instrument major. You can get degree from the conservatory, and that's my personal experience, And so I think, on one hand, I'm a conductor. I'm conducting many Beethoven, Brahms, as you can see. Every conductor. But at the same time, I'm very interested in contemporary Chinese music, and including the traditional one or the new pieces.
Well, it's really, it feels like, the history of music really brings different directions from different corners of the world together, and including the people going back and forth. As you mentioned, the musicians and at Bard College, the students are trained as Chinese music, but also studying at Bard. Could you talk a little bit more about, now as the director of the U.S.-China Music Institute at Bard College, and also pretty deep into the educating those students here who will performance later. Could you talk a little bit more about the thoughts behind educating students in Chinese music here at Bard College?
Just use the Shanghai Symphony as an example. Because the just use the Shanghai Conservatory as an example. In 1927, when they built the Shanghai Conservatory. At the same time, and much earlier before, the foreign residents in Shanghai also created Shanghai Symphony Orchestra. All those two very important organizations in China actually really boosted the classical music development in China. And so that what I see is to institutionalize some artistic form in China. That really had a really important function. So what we do in Bard College also, with the visionary, our president Leon and Boston, really want to put this in. So we created this U.S.-China Music Institute. And basically, our goal is to institutionalize Chinese music in the West. So we have a center, and people can always come here to learn. And with the creation of this institute, we plan, and we have been doing services. And this is our 2 years, just about 2 years. So what we do a few things. One is we created undergraduate education in Chinese instruments. So you can hear today, and we have four people came. 2 of them are graduate students. Actually, it's sent by the Central Conservatory as a teacher and a student. And then we have 2 undergraduate students, and they will play as well. So those are then they are the first generation of Chinese instrument major in the West or in the Bard Conservatory. And we created this. I have 2 thoughts within it. One is, for now, we mostly recruit players from China to come here to study, right? And for that, what I'm thinking is, for Chinese musicians learn Chinese music. In the past, always when you become organ player or Pipa player, you stop thinking to go overseas. And most of the situations, you don't go overseas. Yeah. So I think that is it's a very different than the piano player or violin player. And because from their young, they say, I'm going to Juilliard, or I'm going to somewhere. So they have this mind to keep learning English and keep learning Western culture. And then on the other side, the Chinese student actually lack of that. So what I like to create in the Bard Conservatory is the student come from China. When they still learn the traditional Chinese music, also they can get American liberal arts education. So that will create a new generation of Chinese musicians to further to explore Chinese music around the world. And even those students, they can go back to China, and they will take a different road because they're thinking, the 5 years study here make them thinking differently when they're on music. I think that will make the music continue to develop. And at the same time, the second goal is hopefully, because they bring the wonderful music here, then we will have more Western people to join force to learn Chinese instruments. Yeah, so that's the one of the goals for the conservatory we're doing.
That's very much, as you mentioned at the very beginning, when the communication is back and forth, there's Western music going to China, but Chinese music to the world as well. This is really part of the very latest and a very exciting journey that you are doing, the Bard College is doing to bring Chinese music to the world stage.
Yeah, you can see in the Bard Conservatory, those Chinese instrument students interact with the Western instrument players every day, 24 hours a day, they live together. So there's some creativity, there's creation going to be made. And I think that's what I'm really looking forward to it. And since they're all here, then composers will be interested to compose for them, and there will be more music come out. And so that will be a kind of different than the same kind of music developed in China. So they will have two different ways to continue this.
I'm also curious, since Chinese music sort of like we're in this world context, it has been around for thousands of years. Even though most of the time in China, geographically, culturally, I'm also curious about today, as you look at the world stage of music, what kind of influence that Chinese music has had as you observe or experience, and then how that can be connected to the vision that you have for this new generation of students learning Chinese music.
Yeah. When you talk about, we are in the classical music world, and so I'm conducting, as I said, Beethoven or the classical music. And if you look at our repertoire, we're playing, pretty much we have been playing dead people's music for a very long time. Of course, those are the 19th century, 20th century, those are high days of classical music, and we left a great treasure to continue to flourish, to shine. And so that's what we do. But at the same time, we're in 21st century. And when you look at back to Mozart time, Beethoven's time, basically Mozart time, they play Mozart's music. Beethoven's time, they play Beethoven's music. That's a contemporary. But for today, how much of our concert really play contemporary composers' music? It's very, very rare. Very, very, yeah. So that's what I think when we get into the 21st century, all the classical musicians or the composers were searching for the next, what do you call next wave or next, the new generation, next generation of new music. What kind of music can help us to continue this classical music form? And it's a very, very, very important question to ask all the musicians. I think also it's really its audience, because if you don't have your time of your music of your time, and then you don't relate the music, you don't relate with the people. If you don't, the music doesn't relate to people, then you will get less and less. Especially today, the music education is lacking for many of American secondary schools, and kids don't get a classical music education. How do you expect them to love Beethoven or love some? So you have to have a way to continue to inspire them. I think that the contemporary music is one of its important elements. But when we talk about the contemporary music, people immediately think, contemporary music is something we don't understand. That's probably true in the history from 1950s until, maybe until now. For part of the Western music developed into rather very individualistic or a little narrow that kind of direction. But if you look at China, the classical music, we call, and the art form actually is really flourishing. Every year when we have an orchestra bankrupt in this country, every year there's a professional to create in China. And also, there's 40 million people, young kids are learning to play the piano, and there's millions of people learning to play all different kind of instruments, Western instruments and Chinese instruments. So you do, every time I go back to China, I feel this vibration of this music world actually is booming. And last night I went to the concert at Central Conservatory of Music Symphony Orchestra. They premiered 8 pieces, all by renowned Chinese composers today in front of Central Conservatory. What I want to answer your question is, I think if you talk about the contemporary music scene, Chinese composers, Chinese musicians actually can take a very important role and to help to further develop 21st century music. And people always ask me, do you think China can save classical music? Yeah. And I would say, depending on how you define classical music. If you define classical music, it's only Mozart, Beethoven, Bruckner, Wagner. I would say China may not save them, because this is only part of it. I don't expect many Chinese people will go to theater to say 5 or 6 hours to listen to Wagner's The Ring of the Nibelungen or something. Yeah, even in this country, so I don't. But what I think Chinese can contribute is that they can put the new elements into this classical music form, and so they use symphony orchestra to create new pieces, and they use the same instrument to and to have the same kind of new blood, new thinking into this. So if that you call that, you can define that's a part of classical music, then I think China can help a lot. And I think if you talk about the contemporary Chinese composers, for example, they definitely it's not in the back seat anymore. Like Tan Dun, Zhou Long, those are really, it's one of the top contemporary composers active in the world. And so does Lang Lang or Wang Yujia, those brilliant musicians, right? And now we hope we can have more Chinese instrumentation to join force for this.
That's really, for innovation and for relevance.
Yeah.
That's what we are looking to the music world, whether we are looking at China or other parts of the world. It's all coming together. And now shall we look into the students and the next generation that were to really hear from them as well. We really get to the point where we can feel their music.
Definitely. Yeah. I think I'll just say a few words about it. We have 4 performers today to perform, include the piano, we have 5, and 4 Chinese instruments, and the 2 Ruan, it's called Ruan, the instrument called Ruan, and another 2 Pipas. So Ruan and Pipa, you all consider them plugging instruments, and they plug and use fingers or use pin. So those instruments actually had a really long history. And in the old days, especially probably in Tang Dynasty, all those instruments called Pipa. Even Ruan was called Pipa. Because Pipa referred to the way of your playing. They play all words called P and play by inward pa. So Pipa is Pipa. So there's the instrument named after the sun. And then, but the specific instrument Ruan actually is named after a person, Ruan Xian, from 6th century. 7th century. And so he actually is involved in creating these instruments, and so become very popular. But later on, actually, it died away. We don't really see people play anymore until the 1950s. People started recreate, to the present form. So those are, for this concert, we bring those 4 students as for the 2 instruments to show you. And maybe next time we will bring string instrument or a blowing instrument. Each time we'll give you different kind of focus, so for you to understand better all the time.
More to look forward to.
Yeah, exactly.
So we will bring the performance on stage, and also after the performance we will have a little bit time for Q&A, so that we can really extend the chat well with the audience as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. I think between the pieces, I will not say anything anymore because it's pretty obvious. It gave you the glance of the pieces, either from the folk influence or from historical events or something. If you have questions about the pieces, we can answer you after the things. Okay, thank you very much.
amazing? So we will bring all the students back to stage with Professor Tsai. We have a few minutes for Q&A, and then we also have a reception after the program, so we have more time to communicate with the musicians. So as well, we also take some time to set up the stage. So I guess we'll really see the full stage, the front and back.
Yeah.
Now let's welcome the students back to the stage. And Professor.
Sit down. As you can see, two of them are our first year as a freshman. Yeah, and then other two will be their teacher and here. So the way of the teaching is this way, and all our students are taught by the Central Conservatory professors. But you know, they're in Beijing, and so what we do, we have the online teaching set up on Team Studios. So they get that kind of lesson from that way. And also the professor from Beijing, we ask them, you know, they can come at least once a semester to teach them. And on the regular basis, each professor send one of their graduate students to come to stay at Bard Conservatory for a year. So basically taking care of the daily or weekly lesson and playing. So they have been really wonderful. I think the way we work it out really well. So yeah, now probably you can ask them questions. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Congratulations, beautiful music. As I was listening to the last musical piece, which is Ruan, am I wrong that I was hearing also, I know I'm making connection with a little bit of the Western music. I'm thinking of Scarlatti in the Baroque period, and I heard something like it at certain moments. But in any case, my real question is, when you spoke before about influences of Western and vice versa Chinese music, are we talking about a kind of fusion in some of the piano and the Pipa? I noticed some of that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think as you can see, yeah, the pieces what you hear mostly are contemporary pieces. They composed in the recent years. Of course, they took mode or different scales from different part of China either, or maybe worldwide. The last piece you were mentioned, probably the music mostly come from what do you call now Xinjiang province. It's a Uyghur music, and that part. In China, you know, and officially there's majority of Chinese are Han Chinese, but there's 56 different minority groups. So like in the top of the Mongolian and near the Korean borders, the Korean Chinese and so on. So those, and so the Chinese composer has drawn all this big part from different minority groups of the music of their characteristics into the piece. So that's what you can often hear from today's composition, right? Yeah. I will let them to answer some other questions. Yeah.
Any of the students from Xinjiang?
They're not. They're not from Xinjiang. Yeah. So where are you from?
Okay, so I'm from Beijing, and I'm a freshman, and I just come to Bard for 4 or 5 months. Yeah.
And you're, all the conservatory students are have to take 2 majors. So one major is Pipa.
Yeah, and the second major I have undecided, but I'm interested in like foreign language or economics, something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure.
She's not sure, like many our undergrad students, right? They're not necessarily sure. What about you? Yeah.
I'm from Heilongjiang, a city near Harbin. And my second major, I don't know, I'm not sure. Maybe computer science, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, good. So all the conservatory students have 2 majors, including Western instruments. And in the past, we have a major in violin, the second major in economics. And then most of our students, after graduate from the conservatory, probably I would say 85 or 90% went on continue as music. They go to graduate school in Yale or Juilliard or some places. But also they went to masters for economics, medicine, and computer science or art history. It's all different. So I think what fascinated me is for young people, you give them challenge, they just take the challenge. And they can do so well. There was one student I remember had a move from China too. She's one major is piano, another major is like French literature. So it's a really interesting. I think it's a very a special kind of thing only offered at Bard.
It's sort of in line with what that gentleman said, but I was thinking, I am not a musicologist. I'm at the bottom of the spectrum, from really know the stuff to don't know the stuff. But I was thinking country and western, Beatles, a lot. To my ear, I would say they're only a couple of steps removed from that kind of music. I'm just making first an observation. Second, in your spare time, do you ever get together with students or musicians or peers or whoever who like to play Beatles? I'm using Beatles music just as an example because I happen to love them. But country and western, where you take your skills and you combine them, basically mesh them with someone else's music. Country, I'm just repeating a little bit. Do any of you ever do that?
Yeah, and do you understand the question? I think the question is asking 就是什么呢？should I say Chinese? Yeah. 就是因为他讲就是特别是这个甲壳虫，这个流行音乐，说你们有没有这样的实验？就是你们在中国，就是说用你们的乐器，中国的乐器和这些就是流行音乐有过这样接触没有合作？
I played the La La Land. Last year I played the La La Land with the violin and the cello.
Yeah. So they do have some competitions. Sometimes for really composition purposes, writing that way. Sometimes just for fun.
Like I'm saying, a lot of this. Well, first of all, I liked a number of the performers. They looked like they were having fun.
Yeah, that's true.
Good.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think one of the characteristics of Chinese music is you can see all the pieces have title in it. It's very different than Western music. It's a E minor sonata, or D major symphony, or something. Here in Chinese music, almost non-Chinese piece actually written that way. And one of the reasons I think because the Chinese music also very closely related with Chinese culture, and they always want to tell a story. So you can and because of that, you can see when they perform piece, they are more involved with that piece because they're trying to tell you a story.
I wonder if China has an early music movement. Do you have Tang Dynasty, early Shang Dynasty, whatever? Because you only keep, everything is contemporary.
Yeah, very good.
Is there something else exists?
Very good question. 就是说，他的问题就是问我们有没有就是专门的，去研究古典作品的，就是说，你知道，就是不用现代的技法去影响它，完全用古典的作品去做，古典的方法去演奏。
The first piece I played is
It's an ancient piece. Oh, yeah.
What do you know? Do you know what century? Ancient.
是哪个世纪？
I don't know, but it's many hundred years old.
是唐谁？
Song dynasty, so it's around
Closer to Song. I think 10th to 11th century. Yeah, of course. The thing is, what the interesting Chinese music also is like it go by generations, not really by composers. So we don't really know who originally composed that piece. So it's by masters. By the performer actually is the form of transform this piece. So because performer transforms the piece, it changes all the time. A different composer, different period, and different instrument change or the school change, so all changing. So that's what has, and you know, people always fascinated. I always fascinated. Composers are ancient time. Composers are not important. And when we do a concert here, you know, we always ask, who's the composer? Actually, there's non-composer. So we just have to say traditional. But traditional, what I mean, it's not like one tradition. It's all throughout generation, gradually changing, and depending on who is the master, refine it, and that one become more popular. Then on the other part of China, maybe another master, and then also very strong, become popular too. So sometimes you have a southern style, northern style, or a different style on the same piece. It can be so different, right?
Manuscript for the first piece.
Yeah, 这个古典就是你第一个作品哈，这个古典的谱子是什么样
简谱。
The simple notation. Yeah. And so for the first piece, I can deliberate from that. And the ancient music actually written in different kind of notation, and different instruments have different notation. So for Pipa or for Huqin, for Pipa they always tell you, you can when you see the notation, it's pretty much like Chinese little article or essay. It tells you which finger use what kind of technique to strike in which string, and the left and right. So that's what the piece is written. And so many pieces are based on that. But sometimes you don't really know, for example, the tuning of the instrument. You don't really, even you put it in the same finger, same way, it can be very different. So that's one of the, in the conservatory, the musicologists in the conservatory, one of the professions or the major is decode those ancient manuscripts. In Beijing, in Shanghai, they all have that. Yeah.
If I may repeat, ask again. In terms of the exchange program that you were mentioning earlier, I'm wondering, are there non-Asian or non-Chinese American students learning Chinese music, and have any of them, or are they planning to have a year or semester in Shanghai or in Beijing?
Yeah, 在北京中央音乐学院有外国学生，right?
Yeah, and foreign students.
Yeah, in the Central Conservatory, there are foreign students who went to China to study, and I'm sure over the world we have a Chinese, non-Chinese student learning Chinese instruments, and I hope we are starting this program, and we will have more non-Chinese who will join us to study. And actually, we have one of our students here. She's played arbo, yeah, and she has been with our program actually for a couple of years. She's still in high school. Hopefully, we can grab her to Bard College in the future.
spent so much time.
Right, yeah.
Spent so much time listening and trying to imitate these instruments at the piano. In Western music, we learn to sound like a voice or learn to sound like a string instrument. You imitate something else. What is the sound that, especially with the plucked instruments, that you imitate in your ear?
Yeah， 知道意思吧？就是说，他说问这个，就是他学这个钢琴这个时候，他在学一个作品的时候，都会跟着老师都会说，哎呀，我让你要像唱歌一样，要像小提琴弦乐一样，什么呀？那你们在教的时候，怎么样用这种什么样的办法去，同样的办法还是怎么样？ Yes, she said you use the same message, right? Same methods to do that. Yeah.
I'm amazed that they don't need to read when they play the musical
Yeah,
instrument.
that's right.
Why?
说你们怎么都背下来了？
We need to remember all the.
I think because of the muscles memorize. And sometimes when we practice, we need to practice lots of time, and then to have like performance or some concert. But when we practice, we need to have muscle memory.
Muscle memory.
Yeah, like that.
So they memorize that one.
And also because of the melody, different keys have different melody, and also different keys. So we need to remember that, and because of the memory that we can play it better and to show our feel or show the piece story to people.
Great. Yeah, very good. So let's give them a big round. Wonderful format to introduce our program, introduce music.
Yes.
And I want to thank China Institute, Shenzhen, and everyone on the team working on this project with us. And I hope we can continue and to do this and bring some really wonderful Chinese music to the audience.
We'll do that next year.
We will bring them back, definitely. Okay, so you can talk to them and in the reception. You're welcome. We can talk together. I'll be here. We'll be here around. All right, thank you.